Chapter 12. As we neared the house, the watcher came back to life. Almost there, I see. I'm always unsure that I'll reach my destination when I ride in one of these machines. In that, you're not alone, I said. There's enough slack in the moving parts to give me nightmares, I laughed. Since I had some nightmares not long ago, I know what I'm talking about. I pulled into the driveway and turned off the engine. Immediately, the watcher climbed out, carrying the pennies. As Gloria and I followed him up the walk, I found time to reflect that he looked quite odd in a brown suit with a felt hat pulled low over his eyes. He might be able to pass as a native at several yards. One of the watcher's slim fingers pressed the doorbell before I reached the door. "You don't have to do that," I said. "I just wanted to see how it worked," he murmured, opening the door. I wondered what it operated, to be more exact. I think a chime is much more melodious than some of the other signaling devices. Almondo appeared at that moment. "Who?" he gulped. "Oh, the watcher." "Excellent guess," the Catman said. "You must be Almondo." Almondo nodded absently, turning to me. "Would you mind telling me what's been going on? I lost you somewhere in the mountains, and I was barely able to follow you there. My brain'll never be the same." "Have you been worrying?" Gloria asked. "There wasn't anything else we could do." "But what have you been doing?" he demanded. "We met the owners of the earth," I said, "or at least one of them. It seems that—" "What of Jovian?" Almondo interrupted, almost frantic. Before I could reply, the watcher said, "Suppose we go into the laboratory. I'm interested in seeing what sort of a device you have to screen this house." Gloria led the way down the hall, and we entered the laboratory with its humming machines. The watcher looked around with an inquisitive air. "Bach," Almondo said, exasperated. "Would it be presumptuous of me to ask what happened?" I smiled at him and began to carefully recount our actions up to our arrival home. Throughout the narration, Almondo listened, absorbed, his eyes glistening with interest, while the watcher sat at my desk, making a recording on my dictating machine and idly playing with the electric typewriter. He smiled at us and replayed the recording. It was in a strange language, his own, I decided, but he seemed quite satisfied with the results. "Ingenious device," he murmured. He picked up the thin plastic disc and studied the fine lines scribbled on its surface. Presently, he laid it down and looked up at the three of us. "I suppose you would like me to give you some more information." "Frankly, no," Almondo replied. The watcher laughed and walked to the other side of the room. He studied the thought shield machinery, then casually opened the switch. "I believe that leaves this room insulated, but we will be able to transmit thoughts." "That's right," Gloria said. He couldn't resist turning back to look at the machine again. "Well, I shall tell you about Gloria. As you know, she's from Mars." He paused to dart a glance at the rest of the equipment on the bench, then walked to the spectrometer. He continued talking as he examined this. "She was originally sent here to trap me, and a very attractive trap, I must add." He smiled at Gloria, who blushed obligingly. "It was a futile effort, though, but they couldn't know that. You see, they suspected that there was a mutant on this planet. It occurs occasionally, and they're a danger to the snakes, because they usually can't be controlled. Their mental capabilities most often exceed those of the snakes, and so it is to their advantage to destroy them. That's why they allowed Gloria to escape, for they felt quite certain that he or I couldn't resist helping a beautiful woman. Needless to say, the Earthmasters, or the snakes as I call them, have found out all about me time after time, But unfortunately, they keep forgetting. He laughed, obviously enjoying this. They were right in one thing, though. I couldn't resist helping a beautiful woman, and I admit it took a great deal of helping to get her out of that mental hospital. I knew someone must have done it, I said, but I never thought of you. The Watcher smiled. I didn't consider it wise to approach Gloria in person or take any direct action, as the snakes hoped I would. It was a distinct relief when I perceived your presence, Bach, for I was sure Gloria would be in good hands. You see, without actually knowing it, you've done a great deal for me. I do not see that we have, Almondo commented. The Catman stretched himself to his full height. Do you think I could pass for a mutant? I'm afraid not, Almondo replied, smiling. Exactly so, the Watcher said. Nor could I do a thing for Gloria other than what I have done, without revealing that I am not of this planet. Bach realizes, I'm sure, the wiseness of keeping such a thing secret. However, you could easily pass for mutants, and so I sent Gloria to you. For which I am duly thankful, I added. Well, the Watcher sighed. For the time being, the issue is closed as far as the snakes are concerned. They think I am Bach. They think Bach is a mutant. Therefore, I am a mutant. He laughed. Very confusing, but it is well to be protected. I don't see how the snakes can control this world from the moon, I said. Their minds don't seem strong enough, and it would take a tremendous amount of energy to do an effective job. And so it does, the Catman answered, reclining on a chair. They use a neural wave pattern amplifier, which is quite efficient. On this planet, they cannot possibly keep track of every individual, so they concentrate on those who are in positions of authority and those who are likely to cause them trouble. In this way, they keep the Earth in an iron grip. 5 years, Almondo murmured. 5 years? Of this? The room became silent. The Watcher rose and walked over to the laboratory bench. He opened a cabinet and began studying the bottles, taking off the caps and smelling the contents of each one. I looked at Gloria, then suddenly remembered the pennies we'd bought. Where are the pennies? I asked. On the desk, she replied, picking up the rubber gloves. The three of us carefully unwrapped the rolls and dumped the pennies into the bucket. The bucket was full when we'd unwrapped a little over half our supply, so we ran them through the machine. Nothing happened. I sighed as we went back to work on the rest. It seemed such an ineffectual way to find you, but I could think of no other means. At least this was safe, or so it seemed to be. You're tired, Almondo said to me. You should rest for a while. Not yet, I replied. I have so much to do, and we must find Jovian. Every day that goes by will make it more difficult. I know, Almondo replied softly. It discourages me to imagine what injuries Jovian's mind may contain. If we can get to Jovian soon enough, I know I can repair any damage. However, Jovian was fine when they... Don't worry, Gloria interrupted. We will find Jovian somehow. Almondo punctuated this by dropping the last roll of pennies into the bucket. We waited, hoping, yet fearful. I noticed that Gloria's face was lined from constant strain, and not knowing what else to do, I put my arm around her. There seemed so little I could do for anyone. Then the chime sounded, and a penny clanked into the little tray on the side of the machine. No one moved. Did you touch any of these pennies? Almondo asked me. I shook my head. Only when I have these gloves on. I held up my hands. The room seemed deathly still. I stared at the penny on the tray, unbelieving. For a moment, I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then slowly, realization swept over me. This was your penny. You had touched it. This penny, this little disc of metal, would lead us to you. Jovian! I cried. I leaped for the main power switch, but before I could reach it, the watcher was planted firmly in front of it. No, 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 he exclaimed. What? I asked, dumbfounded. Wait, you must not rush to find Jovian. Remember, you must be careful for Jovian's sake. But we have found Jovian, I said slowly. We must bring Jovian here where it's safe. The watcher shook his head. You're not thinking, Bach. You're known by the snakes, and in order to control you or keep you harmless, they've taken a hostage. If you know where the hostage is not a hostage. For your own safety, as well as Jovian's, you must leave things as they are. But that's impossible, I protested. Jovian cannot be left alone in this world. We couldn't do it. The watcher still stood in front of the machine, unmoving. A few minutes, one way or the other, will make little difference now, he said. Would you allow me to give you 2 pictures? I looked deep into those slitted eyes, and my anger died. Whatever might happen, this man was a friend on this friendless globe, and a few minutes was certainly a small request. I nodded my head, relaxed my mind, and waited. First, I saw you in this house, your face agonized, your mind weak and weary. I saw you rebel against the confinement, yearning to be free, you who loved freedom so. I knew I wasn't happy, Armando less than myself. I knew there would be times when we would suffer, times when all of us would weep when we thought of home, that we could only pretend to be contented. Before I could analyze the picture further, it changed. I saw you in another environment, and you were happy. You were living in illusion, an illusion that you were a native of this planet, that you were born here, an illusion which the Earthmasters labored over night and day. I saw them making sure, taking pains, that you were as happy as anyone else, so that you wouldn't stand out, making your life tolerable, so that you might be hidden from us. And then, the picture faded. You see, the watcher said, they'll bend every effort to give Jovian a reasonably happy existence, just as long as they think their hostage is hidden from you. But we can't leave it that way, I said, trying to reach the switch. Again, the watcher blocked me. I stood back and surveyed him, wondering what I could do. Then I remembered that only the laboratory was insulated and turned to leave the room. Wait, the watcher said. There was a plaintive, pleading quality in his voice that made me turn back. What have you to offer Jovian? He paused, breathing deeply. What can you give Jovian besides pain and heartache? How long do you think Jovian could survive this confinement? And if Jovian shouldn't survive, how would you reconcile your action? My thought processes came to a halt. I realized there was much I'd never considered before. Perhaps in my zeal to protect you, I would destroy you. My desire to save you might cost you your life. I looked at Gloria, whose frightened eyes revealed how much she blamed herself for this, and then at Armando. His calm, impassive face didn't show the turmoil within his mind, nor the ache in his heart. I turned to the watcher. How can we know that Jovian will be safe? I will guarantee that Jovian will be safe. He smiled suddenly. What do you say? Am I right? You are right, I said slowly. The Catman pointed to the penny machine. There's the beginning of the trail. You can follow it and make sure with me that your friend is safe and reasonably happy. One of the Watcher's flexible hands pulled the main power switch. The world about us burst into life in our minds, and we turned our eyes back to the penny. I sensed at once that the Watcher was guiding us, for we jumped from place to place with an agility that was beyond me. We traced the penny to a newsboy, then to a man, and then to a store, through individual after individual, 10 in all. Number 11 was sitting in a room, idly thumbing through a magazine. We finally centered our perception on the figure, and I recognized it. It was you. Your mental impression was one of mild interest in the magazine before you. You were not particularly concerned with events to come, and the world without didn't trouble you to any extent. Your memories were almost complete. You remembered the day before, and the one before that, your memories of time dimming as their distance from you increased. Your surroundings you didn't find unpleasing. You had a name. In short, you had a new identity. I wanted to say something to you. I could hardly restrain myself, but the Watcher said mentally, We must go now. They're returning. Be careful that they do not detect you. We withdrew our minds then, and once again, we were in the small laboratory. The Watcher closed the main power switch, then looked piercingly at Armando and myself. There's a saying on this planet, he said, that where ignorance is bliss, it is folly to be wise. I drew a long breath. Jovian seems to be all right, I said. I guess we just have to sit and wait. Your friends will be coming for you someday, the Watcher replied. If by some chance they should not, then I shall take you with me. But this you know, when that day comes, then you have something to offer Jovian. Until then, you have nothing. I sighed. With Jovian as a hostage, there's nothing we can do to prevent this planet from becoming a deadly danger to the Union. Our hands are effectually tied. True, the Watcher replied. But I'm reminded of another saying on this planet, that the pen is mightier than the sword. What do you mean? You have established yourself as a writer, the Catman said. Why not use this as a means of nullifying the control of the owners of the world? The people on this planet are the same as yourself. They are slaves who do the will of their masters without knowing it. He smiled. Why not tell them stories, true stories? Information is information, no matter what guise is used to pass it on. It might work, I admitted. I paused, thinking. Yes, there are many things I can write about, and the snakes would never suspect if I disguise it well. At least it is something to do, Armando said. Perhaps, if there's time, if they come for us, we can acquaint the Union with the situation, and something definite can be done. The Watcher's grin broadened. In 10 years, maybe 15, my friends will be coming for me. We'll decide then what to do about the snakes. He flashed a mental picture of the arrival of his friends. I gasped. There was a tremendous armada of angelic warships and fierce weapons with thousands, no, millions of watchers. And then I remembered that above all things, even above learning, the watchers loved justice. And although the Earth might lose its moonlit nights, the rest of the solar system would live in peace and freedom. It was with gratitude and appreciation that I walked with the Catman to the door. He sensed my thoughts and smiled. And then I watched him walk away, cat-like, supremely confident, and quite at home in the night. I closed the door and faced Gloria and Armando. Well, they will be coming for us someday. We have a lot of work to do between now and then. Armando nodded. I have quite a bit to do right now, he turned. You should rest, Bach. You must sleep now, you know. I nodded, and Armando disappeared into the laboratory. We were alone then, Gloria and I was happy, and as happy as I could hope to be on this world. The present was all we dared think about now, but someday we both knew that the future we dreamed about would be ours.